All right, friends, now it is time on this sock to knit the gusset, or I think there's two gussets, one on either side of the foot. Let me show you. I'm going to turn the camera down now and show you on my old socks what the gusset is. Okay, here's my two socks. Cuff, ankle, heel, flap, heel turn. Can you see that? Heel turn. Okay. And now I am working on what's called the gusset, and we're going to look and see what a gusset is. If you look at, see this little triangle section here on this sock? Right here, that's the gusset. Okay. And there's one on either side. Here's the triangle part on the other side. Basically, it is a gradual reduction as you get toward the foot of the sock, and you want it to just be, you know, around your foot, and you don't need all this distance. And so you're gradually reducing. Now what happens here, this is the back of the heel, okay, and this is where my row starts. So I have a marker there usually. Well, it must have slipped off. I have an orange marker that I keep there. That's my orange marker. And then I have my first marker over here on one side of the instep. And here's a red marker, which is the other side of my instep. And now what I'm going to do as I make this round, around and around like this, which is what I'm doing is if you look at this one, I'm just going around and around and around this body as I'm going down doing this gusset. And how you work the gusset is as I knit down here, and before I get to my first marker, on the last 3 stitches, I'm going to knit 2 together, then knit 1, and then go ahead and do my instep. So it's just a decrease of 1 stitch. And then when I get to the other side, after I pass my marker, I'm going to knit 1, do a slip knit, which is also basically just a decrease of 1 stitch. That's a nice little decrease, and then go back to the top. I'm going to do that every other row. So one row will be plain knit, and then I'll do my decrease row, and then knit, and then my decrease row. And so gradually the number of stitches along here is going to shorten, 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 shorten until it gets down to nothing. And that's what's happening here. Okay. Is I'm starting where I took stitches here on the side of the heel flap, picked them up, and then gradually I'm reducing, and notice that the reduction is right here before. This is the first stitch marker spot. It's before I start the instep, and so the instep stays constant, but the reduction is on this edge of it, okay, until I get down to this spot. And they're going to tell me that it needs to be like, I need to have like 56 stitches left on my needle. For my pattern, since I'm adjusting, that'll probably be like something like 62 or something. And then at that point, I don't have to decrease anymore, and I can just continue toward the toe. I'll be keeping my markers on the whole time, even as I go toward the toe, because they said that that was important. All right, I'm going to keep on working on these little socks. I'm enjoying making socks. After I made this pair, I thought I would just always be making a pair of socks, but after you get done with the second one, you're kind of tired of socks because you've done 2, and you're like, ugh. But I'm enjoying it again. It makes better sense this time. It's easier to remember how the pattern works, so I may be keeping a sock in the works most of the time. We'll see. If you're wondering what this is, this little contraption, this is not a backpack. I am not a backpacker. My husband says I look like I'm going to Switzerland in the Alps. But no, this is a back brace because I've had some back trouble. And this is to help with my posture. It helps keep my shoulders back. It helps keep my shoulder blades together, which means that those rhomboid muscles that cross your back at the top are getting a rest. They get to relax and they get to heal some instead of being under constant pressure. So that's why, if you see me wearing this, no worries. It's just me wearing my back brace occasionally during the day. All right, more sock fun just around the corner. Okay, my friends, here's another look at this sock. Heel, heel turn, gusset. And we've been working on the foot. And the instructions say to start the decrease on the foot that goes toward the toe, the shaping of the toe, when you have about 2 inches left. And so I have slipped this on my foot, and I have about 1 row left before I need to start my decrease. So before I begin that, I thought for those of you who are doing your socks on double pointeds and are just hesitant about circular needles, I wanted to show you what it looks like to do a row on circular needles. Okay. Now, I just want to say, here's the beginning of the round over here, the beginning of each round. As I've said before, the round is divided into 4. So I keep my circular needles like this, and then I have a stitch marker like this. It's almost the quarters of a clock, okay? And so here's 12 o'clock, 3, 6, 9, and you just go in a circle. These 2 stitch markers are going to be important for my decrease to the toe shaping, so make sure you keep those on there. These 2 spots are marked by your needles, and so you don't really need, I was keeping a stitch marker up here, but it's absolutely unnecessary, okay? Now to begin a row, you're going to take this side of the sock that's closest to you, or whatever tube you're knitting, and get your needle, get it loaded with all the stitches on this side. These ones at the end can be a little tight. Okay, so those are loaded. And then you pull this needle out. Okay, it's all of it's down here. Pull it out. And then you just knit. You knit this half from this needle onto this needle. Simple knitting. Okay, and I'll bring you back when I have to fiddle with my needles again. Okay, so I'm almost to the end of what was loaded onto this needle. Here's my last 2 stitches. Okay, then I'm just going to turn the work around. I like to keep my hand in here so that that loop doesn't disappear, because I'm going to be pulling that out. And then I just pull this needle in and pull this needle out. You always have, this is a nice long circular, so you always have plenty. And then I do exactly the same thing as I did before. I load the stitches onto this. And you don't have to worry about dropping stitches off of those double pointeds. And usually you have 4 double pointeds on a pair of sock. I just find that to be a lot. I've done it before, it's doable, but I just find this easier. All right, I'm going to finish up this row. Here's the beginning of my round now over here. And then I'm going to tell you very briefly what the decrease to the toe is like, and then I'll be done with this for today. Okay, so now I've really done all my knitted rounds I need to do, and I'm going to start my decrease. Now, as with most decreases, you're only going to work the decrease stitches on every other row, not every row. And so every other row is just going to be a knit row, just plain and simple. And then on the decrease row or round, what they want you to do is to decrease on each side of this stitch marker and this stitch marker. And what that decrease looks like is that, so here's the marker, okay? The stitches immediately on either side of the marker are just going to be knitted. But the decrease is on the 2 stitches on either side of those 2 stitches. Okay, so when I get to, when I have 3 stitches left before the stitch marker, and I'm working my way this way, I'm going to knit these 2 together, knit this one, and then do a slip knit with these 2, which is basically a knit 2 together, okay? And you do that on the other side as well, just the same. Knit 2 together before you get to the stitch marker, and then do an SSK after the stitch marker. That's the decrease, very simple. And after you get down to, I think you get down to 20 rows, I'm sorry, not 20 rows, when you have 20 stitches left on your needles, then you're ready to close up the toe. And we'll look at that next. I'm nearing the end of the toe decrease, and at this point you can really see the structure of it. See those 4 columns here on, this is the side, and they're on either side of this marker. The 2 lines of stitches on the inside are just regular knit, and the ones here, the one here and the one on the other side, are the reductions, the decreases, where these stitches are being pulled in and you get that nice angle. So you can see how the toe is going in. I just have a few more rows before it'll be time to do the toes. Now first I was confused by these finishing directions because they told me to knit 5 stitches and then start the finishing. I was like, what in the world? But of course right now, because you see this is the heel, I'm looking at the sock from the side, but in order to do the finishing stitches I need for the sock to be turned this way, okay, with the 2 sides on either side. And so I need to do 5 stitches in order to get my front and my back together so that the shape looks like this. So I'm just going to knit 5 little stitches, and then both of my needles will be over here, okay? And I think I'll take my stitch markers off. Okay, that looks better. Now I've got, see that now the sock is turned correctly, showing the toe, and I've got 10 stitches on the front and 10 stitches on the back. And now I've loaded 10 stitches on the front needle and 10 stitches on the back needle, like little railroad tracks, and I've cut off my live yarn, so I have, you know, a tail, a good long tail. I've also got out my tapestry needle, which I'm going to use to join the end of to close off the toe. They call this grafting, and they give directions for it. I think it's the same as the Kitchener stitch. Either way, I'm going to follow their directions and see how it goes without looking it up on YouTube and see if I can figure it out. I'll bring you back, but I'll show you the directions here, or you can go find a video that shows somebody doing it. I just have to concentrate too much. Those directions actually works really well. So I've done a few and I feel comfortable now. And you can see, I'm sorry, no, you can't see when my yarn's down that far. You can see how it's beginning to close up the toe. I'm not great at this, but I'll give it a try. So here's your yarn threaded onto your tapestry needle. And you insert it on the front needle as if to knit and slip that stitch off. Then you go into the second stitch as if to purl and pull the yarn tight. Then you go into the back needle and you put your needle in as if to purl and pull it off, and then go in as if to knit and pull the yarn through. And so you're using on each needle for each of these little stitches, you're using 2, both the first stitch and the second stitch. So one more time, as if to knit and pull off. Oh, stay on there. As if to purl and pull through. As if to purl, pull off, as if to knit, pull through. Okay, so you see what it's doing. I think it's doing all right for little house slippers. I hope I'm doing that correctly. It didn't say anything about the placement of this yarn, whether it should be in the middle or over the top or whatever, so I'm just keeping it here underneath, but I think it's doing fine. There's my closure, my finishing. And there's my sock. There's the toe, the finishing. Here's the foot, the heel, and the gusset, all the way up to the cuff. And now I just have to do it all over again to have a pair of socks. Thanks for sticking with me on this journey. I promise you, I will not take you through the second sock at all, but you might see me wearing them at some point.